first trilogy of 2017 this month. I can't believe we're already 3 months into 2017. As today I'm going to be taking a look at the final release from the 5th Doctor 2017 opening trilogy with Zaltys. I think it's called Zaltys. It's pronounced differently, I think. It's one of those ones that a lot of different people will be pronouncing in many different ways. But this is the ending story of the sort of trilogy that we've got going on with the main TARDIS team of the 5th Doctor, Adric, Tegan and Nessa. Of course, we've got another 5th Doctor story next month, which is the start of the brand new format, which is one of the ones on the trial run for the upcoming 2018 format, having the Dalek Soul, Alien Mind, or whatever it's called, Alien Heart, Dalek Soul, something like that, which is a 2-part story, which I guess I'll get onto that next month. But today, as I say, I'm going to be taking a look at Zaltys. But as per usual, in the description below, I will leave the link to go and buy this release from the Big Finish website. It is out now. It is currently $14.99, as it is your standard monthly range release, and the download for this release is, of course, $12.99 as well. Firstly, taking a look at some of the casting details for this one, it is written by Matthew J Elliot. From what I can remember, his previous story was Destroyer of Worlds, which was one of the 7th Doctor trilogy stories from the back end of last year. And then it is, of course, directed by Barnaby Edwards as well, who's been directing all of the trilogy so far this year, in fact. Of course, taking a look at the cast for this one, we have quite an interesting one, actually. We, of course, have Peter Davison as the Doctor, Matthew Waterhouse as Adric, Sarah Sutton as Nessa, Janet Fielding as Tegan, Sean Barrett as Perut, Noam Cusack as Clarimond, Philip Franks as Gavuda, Becca Root as Sybil, and then we have a few other people playing different parts of the cast as well. And as you can see, I'm going to have a really fun job pronouncing the majority of the people in the story because we've got a very alien-y style of format, as per the previous Matthew J Elliot story. So firstly, taking a look at the TARDIS team for this one, we have quite a nice sort of balance in this one, in fact. Once again, we do get a little bit of a split off, which it is an unusual era for Doctor Who, because we do in fact have quite a large TARDIS crew. We tend to have a little bit of differing towards the different stories of how different writers approach the 3 different companions. We often have them being split up, which is something which happens for this one, or we have them all together, or one of them gets split off. And it is very much the same case with this one, where very early on in the story, Adric gets split off and goes to a different planet, Tegan gets split off, and the only person that is actually with the Doctor for the first half of the story is Nessa, which is something that does tend to happen quite a lot with these ones. So firstly, the 5th Doctor, once again, he's been a very enjoyable Doctor for this one. I think that we very much have the stereotypical 5th Doctor, where he's very caring, he has some very nice lines in there, sort of. We have a very odd version. I think that the 5th Doctor is a very odd Doctor, because we do tend to have a lot of different things with him, where we have quite dark plots. However, he's quite a nice and fluffy Doctor. You could imagine him having quite nice stories. Once again, with this one, we have quite a dark theme. However, the dark theme is balanced out with a really bright looking nice planet, so we definitely have a lot of different opposites for this one, and quite a lot of it doesn't contrast, which is a very good thing, sort of, at the same time as being very unusual, because it is an alien planet with an alien race, and that just makes sort of perfect sense, because it shouldn't really make sense to us. Adric for this one, once again, is up to his normal antics of being the mathematic genius that he is. At the very start of the story, Tegan wants him to try and fly the TARDIS to prizes for guessing where. Heathrow, of course, because we do tend to have the theme of Heathrow throughout the whole of these episodes, which is once again something I've picked up on in all the previous reviews for this line. I think it's very nice to have that in there. Once again, the ongoing joke, and Adric wants to fly the TARDIS to Heathrow so Tegan can eventually shut up and basically get out. I think pretty much he's a little bit fed up. We have him reading Dracula at the start of the story, and it does in fact work. He does try to get to Heathrow, however it goes a little bit wrong, and then we end up being Zaltys instead. Nessa is once again a character for this one that is very nice. She's very kind, and once again she's a little bit caught up in all the different issues, because she does tend to be thrown into different scenarios. At the very end of the story especially, we have sort of a little bit of a mind-probing type thing, which isn't necessarily a mind probe, a little bit more of a psychic thing to an extent, really. But yeah, she's once again thrown into it at the deep end. I think she's a very intelligent companion to an extent. However, it's nice to see, because she's always sort of normally towards the back, especially the early era of the 5th Doctor. It's nice to see her getting a little bit of power throughout sort of the different companions leaving and things. So generally for this one, she's a really nice and enjoyable character. And then we have Tegan. She's basically her old self in this one, to be quite honest. She wants to go back to Heathrow, of course, obviously, and she does have a few whiny scenes to start with. I think that Matthew J Elliot sort of incorporates that annoying side of her quite well. I think that she certainly was a little bit more annoying towards the start of her run, and I think that a few people like her, a few people dislike her, and then in this one we definitely have that coming through. I think that with this release, some people will like her, some people will dislike her, and I think that is generally the thing that we've got used to Tegan's character with. Basically, you can either like her or hate her, but you still won't listen or watch to the story anyway, because, you know, she's a very odd companion. She's definitely one of a kind. And now I've got the main TARDIS team out of the way, I just want to get on to straight away complimenting the alien style to this story. I think that already I've mentioned the different contrasts between the different people. However, with this one, much like the previous Matthew J Elliot release, he really does throw it all out there. He definitely has a lot of visual stuff. He definitely likes the alien landscapes. He definitely wants to delve into that a lot more. He wants to go into the different people. I think that with this one, we once again have lots of different elements that are played with, and I can really imagine these people being very alien, even down to the way that they speak. I can imagine the stage directions for these types of stories that he writes will be very interesting, because I think he would have a direct idea of how he wants it to be done. We have a fish person in this story that sort of gets a little bit of a relationship with Tegan, which is nice to see. We have a few hairy people in there, sort of a gorilla style of forest in there, which is sort of seen in the background of this one. We have sort of a psychic race in there as well that do lots of different things with the mind. And then we have the main people of Zaltys as well, as I said, that are the main psychic people. And then we even have vampires in there as well. And I think that we have a lot of different, as I say, a lot of different things that are being played with this one. I think that generally Matthew J Elliot does that excellently. I think that I didn't really pick on it too much in the previous review of The Destroyer of Worlds, where he very much sort of had this, I think it was a Viking style of theme. I think that he had sort of wooden ships and things like that, from what I can remember, sort of wooden spaceships to an extent, and it was all sort of very historical but in space. But with this one, once again, it's taking that historical element of the vampires and adapting that to a new planet and having these people physically sort of put themselves in stasis, thinking that there's going to be this natural disaster, when really it's just the vampires that have been tricking their scans and things like that. So they've put themselves in sort of hypersleep, sort of nicely, basically refrigerating themselves for the vampires to come along and feed on them pretty much. But yeah, I think that with this one, it has to be credited, the alien techniques and the alien landscapes and everything about it, it feels like it's been so well thought out, and down to the design of the different characters. I could really imagine these stories working really well on the TV show, and I think that if Matthew J Elliot maybe adapted himself to TV, I think that that may work incredibly well, and we could be probably in for a really nice sort of alien story. How do you think that maybe with characters like this and with alien landscapes like this, some people may not like it, but some people will? The main thing to describe this story so far with Doctor Who is incredibly alien. I've just realised that I'm not wearing my glasses, even though they've been sat right next to me on the bed for the entirety of the start of this review. So yeah, apologies now for the inconsistency. Now I need to include this just so the glasses don't appear oddly in the video. But yeah, you know, moving on, back to the story. This one is also a character called Sybil, who is basically the one, in fact, the person on the cover, the one with the big massive red bushy hair that doesn't look like mine before anybody says it. But yeah, it's basically, it's red, once again very alien, and she's quite a funny character. She's very unusual because she's very comedic. There is a lot of different elements in this story, especially in the early parts, that really did in fact nearly make me laugh, because you have a few little elements in there that are just generally funny. She's a very sassy character. She has lots of different elements to her where she says, "I could kill you now," sort of some of the things that are like, "Oh, I've got a gun," and a very short attention span, I do get bored very quickly. This is a very bad mix of elements and things like that. I think that she just generally, she's very odd, because I really liked her presence in the story. However, there was several points in it where she held the different characters, such as Nessa, Tegan, and in fact Adric, all at gunpoint. She is not really very well understood, I think. She's sort of a very odd character where she could be bad, yet she's good at the same time. She's complying with the Doctor, she's complying with Adric. However, by the very end, when everything is resolved, she's still stood by the TARDIS with the others at gunpoint, wanting to kill everyone. I just think that she's a very odd character, and I think that with this one, once again, she brought something to the story which made it a little bit more enjoyable. I think that, as I said, there was a few elements in this one where it really did in fact make me laugh to an extent. I thought that she's very interesting, and yeah, she is generally a fun character, and something that I like to see with these, because it is the big difference between the TV show, where we have somebody that's never going to appear again, but we've sort of got a really nicely padded out character. She's got a lot of different sort of characteristics in there, and it's nice to see that Matthew J Elliot has took the time to adapt her into something. But for the majority of the characters in this story, to be quite honest, and all the different aliens, as I say, especially the fish person that becomes sort of friends with Tegan, that by the end ends up sort of sacrificing herself for Tegan, even though she doesn't really know her too well. But yeah, it's nice that he's sort of put the time in to really pad out these characters, because I think that it benefits the story. There is also this character called Clarimond, who is at the very start of the story. She has more of a major role to play, where Tegan Tegan is taken out of the TARDIS and she's put onto the spaceship, which is completely pitch black. And to be quite honest, we have Clarimond doing the equivalent of sort of mental torture. She says, oh, you need to do these certain things, go and do this, and sort of look in this room and there's this dead woman in there. And I think that it reminded me a little bit of Heaven Sent, however Heaven Sent with a narrator voice halfway through. And I think that element really did introduce me to the story nicely. It got me intrigued straight away. It's a very nice sort of one-hander section. I thought that it worked incredibly well. It built suspense. It really got me wondering, hang on, what's going on? And there's this very odd scene where the woman, in fact, who's narrating everything, Clarimond Tegan, is in fact Jo Grant. So we have a few references to Jo Grant, and in fact the Doctor is John Pertwee's Doctor. So it's a very unusual theme where we have sort of a lot of different references in there. We have a lot of different references to Sontarans as well. I think that we have a few sort of, it really makes Doctor Who feel like a universe of its own. It sort of has references that don't contribute to the plot in any way. However, it's just nice to have that in there because it really builds on the universe idea. Once again, the composition for this one is incredibly good. I'm guessing, I don't even need to look, but it's probably done by Jamie Anderson, isn't it? Because they're all done by Jamie Anderson, not complaining. Is it actually? No, it's not, for once. It's not, in fact, Jamie Anderson. It is Steve Foxton. I thought that he was incredibly good once again. I have been noticing the different elements of the music recently, and he's done a very good job on this one. There's a few elements that I thought, hang on, that sounds a little bit familiar to certain parts of the Fifth Doctor era, which, to be quite honest, is exactly what I want to see from the music, because it is, of course, from the Fifth Doctor era, so it balances it out incredibly well. I think that it works incredibly nicely, but yeah, I think that the theme, and generally overall, it contributes well to the plot. I think, as I say, the sound design for this one is really good once again, so I really do sort of tend to notice that a little bit more recently. But yeah, so yeah, overall for this one, I think that it's a rather enjoyable release. I could imagine this being a little bit more for the Big Finish fan that's maybe been into Big Finish for maybe a year or two, because it throws a few different elements in there the Big Finish fans will probably be more used to rather than new listeners. But yeah, however, once again, because this is a monthly range, you could essentially jump on with this one or any other of the 222 other ones available, because there are stories in their own right. They don't really tend to have too many themes throughout them that are ongoing plots, apart from sort of the trilogies here and there that they have, such as the Master one from last year. But yeah, generally overall for this one, I think it's a rather enjoyable one. Very alien. If you're into alien planets, you may like this one. If you're into vampires, as well, you may like the idea of alien vampires in this one. But yeah, generally overall, quite an enjoyable one. I think that people will enjoy it probably. It might be one of those ones that is in fact one of the best for this year for the alien landscapes, definitely, and the alien contributions. Definitely interesting to see what people think of this one, because I think that it's an interesting story in its own right. Yeah, that's that. As I said at the start of this review, I will leave the link in the description below to go and buy this release from the Big Finish website. It is out now and it is currently $14.99. And I guess I will join you next month for my review of the next release, which will be 224. It's a Dalek story, once again with the Fifth Doctor. However, this time I do believe it is only the Fifth Doctor and Nessa. And it is Alien Heart and Dalek Soul, written by Stephen Cole and Guy Adams, and it is directed by Ken Bentley. So I guess you'll be able to join me then. So thanks for watching this review. If you enjoyed it, please do give it a big like. Please subscribe if you're not already. If any questions, please do leave them below, and I'll be sure to answer them at some point in the near future. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you all next time. So thanks for watching, and bye for now.